always loved solo camping. Some people find it lonely, but for me, it's the ultimate way to reset. No phones, no constant noise, just me, the trees, and the crackle of a fire. I'm not inexperienced either. I've been camping alone since I was 17, and I know how to handle myself. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for what happened last spring. It was mid-April when I decided to take a trip deep into the woods of a state forest a few hours from home. It wasn't a popular spot for campers, which was perfect. I wanted quiet. After hiking for a few miles, I found a clearing that looked ideal. Flat ground, a nice fire ring someone had built, and a stream nearby for water. I set up my tent and hammock, gathered some firewood, and started getting dinner ready before sundown. While collecting wood, I noticed something strange. Hanging from a low branch was a bundle of sticks, tied together with red cloth. It looked deliberate, like some kind of charm. I figured it was kids playing witchcraft or someone practicing bushcraft knots, so I didn't think much of it. But then I saw more of them, little stick bundles hanging from random trees around my camp, all tied with the same red cloth. Weird, but not enough to make me leave. As night fell, I lit a fire and tried to enjoy the calm. The forest was silent except for the occasional rustle of wind in the branches. Around 10:30, I put out the fire and got into my tent with a book, planning to read until I was tired. That's when I heard it, a faint, rhythmic noise in the distance. At first, I thought it was wind whistling through the trees, but as I listened, it became clear. Chanting. Low voices, chanting something I couldn't understand. I froze, sitting in my sleeping bag, ears straining to catch every sound. The voices were getting closer. My heart started racing. It wasn't just one or two people. It sounded like a group. I reached over and switched off my lantern, plunging my tent into darkness. My only thought was that I did not want whoever was out there to see that someone was camping here. Through the thin tent walls, I saw faint flickers of orange light weaving between the trees. Torches. I swallowed hard, trying to stay perfectly still. The voices were clearer now, chanting in some rhythmic language I didn't recognize. I slowly unzipped the corner of my tent and peeked outside. That's when I saw them. There were at least 7 or 8 figures, all wearing dark clothing, with red sashes tied around their waists. They walked into the clearing just 30 or 40 feet from my camp, holding torches, and formed a circle. One of them dropped a bundle of sticks, the same kind I'd seen earlier, into the center of the circle. Then, they all went quiet. For a few seconds, I just knelt there, frozen in fear. Then one of them suddenly tilted their head, scanning the tree line. It was like they sensed they weren't alone. The person pointed in the direction of my camp. The others turned their heads, their torches lifting slightly, and I knew if I didn't move now, they'd see me. I slipped out of the back of my tent as silently as I could, boots in hand, and crept into the woods. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely breathe. I'd made it about 30 feet when my foot snapped a twig. The chanting stopped instantly. Then a deep voice shouted, "He's here!" and the whole group erupted in movement. I bolted barefoot, branches cutting into my arms and legs as I crashed through the underbrush. Behind me, I could hear their footsteps and the shouts of men and women chasing after me. My lungs burned, but adrenaline pushed me forward. I didn't dare look back. I just ran, trying to put as much distance as possible between me and them. After what felt like forever, I spotted a large fallen tree and dove behind it, pulling leaves and dirt over myself to hide. I lay there, trying to control my breathing, as the torchlight moved through the woods around me. They were searching, their voices getting closer, then farther away. At one point, I could hear someone only a few feet away, breathing heavily as they scanned the trees. I clenched my fists, holding my breath until they moved on. I don't know how long I stayed there, maybe 20 minutes, before the woods finally went quiet. When I was sure they were gone, I slowly crawled out and retraced my steps back to camp. My tent was still there, but everything inside had been ripped apart. My sleeping bag was shredded. My backpack was gone. The only thing left was one of those red cloth bundles, placed neatly on top of the torn fabric. I didn't waste another second. I grabbed my car keys from the pocket of my jacket, which luckily I'd dropped outside the tent, and sprinted back toward the trailhead. It was pitch black, but I didn't care. I just needed to get to my car. Every sound made me think they were behind me again, watching. When I finally reached my car, I threw myself inside, locked the doors, and sped down the dark road without looking back. I didn't stop until I was miles away. When I got home, I sat in my driveway for a long time, just shaking. I kept seeing those figures in my mind, circling their torches in the dark. I never reported it. What would I even say? A bunch of chanting people tried to hunt me in the woods. I don't think anyone would believe me, but I know what I saw, and I will never camp in those woods again, ever. When I was a kid, my parents bought an old 2-story house on the edge of town. It was built sometime in the 1920s, with creaky wooden floors and a narrow, winding staircase that always felt a little too steep. I was about 11 at the time, and I remember being obsessed with exploring every inch of the place, except for the attic. The attic door was in the hallway between my room and my brother's. It wasn't like the normal pull-down ladders you see in newer homes. This was just an old wooden door with a rusty handle, like a closet. My dad told me it was mostly empty, just insulation, dust, and maybe some old furniture from the previous owner. But every time I walked past it, I got this weird chill. For months, nothing unusual happened. We settled into life in the new house, and that feeling I had about the attic faded. It wasn't until one summer night, about a year later, that I realized something was seriously wrong. I was up late, reading with a flashlight under my blanket, when I heard the faintest creak above me. It wasn't like the usual house-settling noises. This was rhythmic, like someone shifting their weight on the boards. I froze, listening hard. After a few seconds, it stopped, so I convinced myself I was just imagining things. A week later, my mom mentioned that she'd been hearing footsteps upstairs while everyone was downstairs watching TV. My dad brushed it off as the house creaking, but the look on her face told me she wasn't convinced. The real horror began a few nights after that. I woke up around 2 a.m. to the sound of something faintly dragging across the floor above me. It wasn't loud, but I could feel it in my bones. I sat there in bed, heart pounding, staring at the ceiling. That's when I heard it. A cough. A human cough. I remember bolting upright, frozen with terror. My first thought was that someone had broken in and was hiding in the attic. I grabbed my baseball bat and ran to my parents' room, stammering that someone was up there. My dad, half asleep, sighed and went to check. He opened the attic door, climbed the narrow steps with a flashlight, and came back a few minutes later shaking his head. See? Nothing there. Probably just a raccoon on the roof, he said. I wanted to believe him. I really did. But deep down, I knew that wasn't it. A few days later, I started noticing weird things around the house. The food in our pantry was disappearing faster than usual. Not the obvious stuff like chips or cookies, but random cans of soup or boxes of cereal. My brother swore it wasn't him, and my parents thought it was just us sneaking late-night snacks. But I wasn't so sure. Then one night, everything came to a head. I'd just gone to bed when I heard it again. The faint sound of footsteps above me. This time, I decided I wasn't imagining things. I crept out into the hallway, bat in hand, and stared at the attic door. My heart was beating so loud I swore they could hear me up there. Slowly, I reached for the handle. That's when I heard the sound of breathing. Not my breathing, someone else's, slow and steady, coming from just beyond the door. I didn't think. I just ran to my parents' room, practically screaming that someone was in the attic. My dad jumped out of bed, grabbed his shotgun from the closet, and told my mom to call 911. The cops showed up within 10 minutes. They searched the attic carefully, while we all waited downstairs, my brother and I clinging to each other. When the officer came back down, he was pale. "There's someone living up there," he said. We all stared at him, stunned. He explained that they'd found an old sleeping bag tucked behind the insulation, along with food wrappers, water bottles, and even some of our missing blankets. Whoever it was had been sneaking down during the day when we were gone, eating our food and living right above our heads. They never caught the guy. The police said he must have escaped through one of the small vents in the attic while they were searching the house. For weeks, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house sent me into a panic. My dad sealed up the attic door and put heavy locks on all the windows, but it didn't make me feel any safer. To this day, I can't stop thinking about that breathing. Whoever it was, they were standing right on the other side of that door, listening to me, waiting. This happened when I was around 17, and it's something that still makes my skin crawl to this day. I had just gotten my license, and, like most teenagers, I was excited to finally be trusted to run simple errands on my own. My mom asked me to stop by the grocery store one evening to grab a few things for dinner, and I didn't think anything of it. It was only around 6:30 p.m., still light out, and the store was just a few miles from our house. I remember the parking lot being busier than usual, probably because people were getting off work and picking up things for the night. I parked in one of the spots towards the back and went inside. It was just an average grocery trip. I grabbed some pasta, sauce, a loaf of bread, and a couple of snacks. Nothing out of the ordinary until I noticed this man. He was older, maybe mid-40s, wearing a black hoodie and jeans. Nothing too strange about him at first glance, but what caught my attention was that he seemed to be following me. It wasn't obvious at first. I'd see him down the same aisle, but I brushed it off as coincidence. The store wasn't huge after all. But then I went from the pasta aisle to the dairy section, and there he was again, just a few feet behind me, staring directly at me instead of looking at any products. I tried to shake it off, thinking maybe he was just waiting for me to move out of the way. But as I made my way through the store, every time I turned around, he was there. Always a little too close. My gut was screaming at me that something wasn't right. I remember pulling out my phone and pretending to talk to someone, hoping it would make him back off. It didn't. By the time I made it to the checkout line, I was on edge. He wasn't even pretending to shop anymore. He was standing a few feet behind me, hands in his hoodie pocket, just watching. The cashier must have noticed something was wrong because she gave me a concerned look and asked if I was okay. I muttered something like, "Yeah, just tired," because I didn't know what else to say. I didn't want to make a scene, but I was terrified. I paid as quickly as I could and made a beeline for the doors, glancing over my shoulder. The man had left his cart, empty, I realized, and was following me out. I froze for a second, debating whether I should go back into the store and ask for help. But I didn't want to seem paranoid. I told myself he might just be leaving too. As soon as I stepped into the parking lot, I realized how wrong I was. My car was parked near the back, and there weren't many people around that area anymore. I heard footsteps behind me, faster this time. My heart was pounding. I reached my car and fumbled with my keys, and that's when I heard him speak. "You live around here?" he asked, his tone low and unsettling. I didn't respond. I jumped into my car, slammed the lock button, and started the engine. He walked up to my window and leaned down, smirking. "I can help you with your bags," he said. His voice made my stomach turn. I didn't even think. I threw the car in reverse so fast I nearly clipped the shopping cart corral. He stepped back, and as I shifted into drive, I saw him take a step toward my car, like he was going to grab the handle. I floored it out of the lot, shaking so badly I could barely hold the steering wheel. I pulled into a gas station a few blocks away to catch my breath. That's when I noticed a black SUV pull out of the grocery store parking lot and start heading in my direction. It was him. He was following me. I don't know how I managed to stay calm enough to think, but I remembered something my dad told me. If someone's following you, don't go home. Drive somewhere crowded, or better yet, a police station. So I did just that. I turned down a few random streets, making sure I wasn't being paranoid. Every turn I made, the SUV followed. My heart felt like it was going to explode. I finally spotted the police station and whipped into the parking lot, honking my horn like crazy. The SUV didn't even slow down. It just sped off as soon as I parked. I sat there shaking until I felt safe enough to call my mom. I told her what happened, and she rushed over. One of the officers came outside, took my statement, and said I'd done the right thing by not going home. To this day, I don't know what that man wanted, but I can guess. He never touched me, never made an overt threat, but the look in his eyes told me all I needed to know. I still can't go to that grocery store without feeling on edge. Thanks for stopping by the channel. We hope you enjoyed these 3 truly terrifying stories. If you want to hear more just like this one, subscribe to our channel and turn notifications on so you can be reminded when we post a new long-form video every Tuesday at 10 a.m. If you have a story you'd like to hear read on the channel, email it to us at officialnightmarenarratives@gmail.com, and you might just hear your story read in a future episode. Thanks again for listening, and stay spooky, friends. We'll catch you